Hey, hi everyone. In this video, we will explore how to build our own custom MCP server. In past few videos, we have seen how to use an existing MCP server developed by some other people. And in this video, we will build our own MCP server. So now we can build an MCP server using one popular Python package, FastMCP, that we will be using. So basically, what is how to what's the different steps like? So as an user, we will use FastMCP to build our own MCP server, and we host it locally. And once it is there, so what we can do, we can before we need to test it, right, whether it's working properly or not. So then there is something called MCP inspector is there, using which we can locally test and can see that whatever we have built our server, it is working properly or not. And this MCP inspector works in stdio mode. Okay, so that means whenever you launch this MCP inspector through the stdio mode, you can talk to like client and server communication will happen, and that way you can test your MCP server. So now this is the first step you should do when you build. So first step, you build your MCP server, then you test it using MCP inspector. Okay, so once you are satisfied, everything looks good, then what you do, then you actually run it or launch it locally. And for launching, you should use the HTTP protocol, so that you will get an URL like localhost 8080 something, some URL you will get. So now once you have the this server running in your local system, then it is easy to connect the way we have seen past, right? So it is easy to connect either AI SDK agent as well as any AI assistant like Cloud Desktop to connect to that MCP server. So basically, this is what we'll do. First, we will build our MCP server. Then first we will test it using MCP inspector. Then we will launch it using HTTP protocol, and then we will try to connect. So that's how the overall flow. So that will give you an idea like how your MCP server works. Okay, so that's what I have divided this particular building one into two videos. Then the first video, like the current video, where we will see how to build our MCP server. Then we will test it using local MCP inspector. Then we will see different ways to launch the MCP server. Okay, so in the next video, we will, once we launch it, right, in the next video we will talk how to connect to those MCP server via Cloud Desktop, OpenAI SDK agent, or even the FastMCP client. This is another way to connecting to and running MCP server. Okay, so with that, let's start our how to build an MCP server. Very simple process. First step, what we need to do, we need to import this FastMCP library. So from FastMCP, import FastMCP. So basically, obviously, you need to install this package. So you can do uv pip install FastMCP. You can refer to my setup guide where this part is explained, where we need to install this FastMCP library. So let's say you have installed it, you simply import it. It's the first step. Then you create an MCP object. So basically, by calling this class, you can just keep some name to any server name you can give, and simple, it will create an MCP object. So now you can say that this is your MCP server. Okay, so now with this single line of code, you have created an MCP server already. Now what we need to do, so what does a server does? Server serves, right? So, and if you remember in the theory I have told that, so you have three possibility. That means you can serve some tools. That means you can provide some tools that can do some task, or we can provide some resources, or we can provide some templates. To give you some example, let's say you have written a Python function called add, which will given two number a and b, it will just add the two number, return it. So simple Python function, what you just need to do, you just need to decorate in simple line @mcp.tool. By simply doing that, this becomes a tool, and since you are connecting to your MCP, that means this becomes part of your MCP tool. So now MCP server. So now in this case, by simply decorating this one function, now we are giving that, okay, this is one tool available in my MCP server. Very simple, right? Because you write regular Python, just you decorate it. At the same time, if you want to provide some readme resources, like the same, you can write a Python function here. You see, it takes an argument, let's say name, and it returns a message like, okay, some hello user kind of thing. Okay, so now, but the only change what you see here, you are using mcp.tool here. Here you have to use mcp.resource, because this is a resource, and a resource takes a parameter, and the argument is little different. It's not a, here the tool argument is other parameter you can specify for the tool, but here the first one what you see is a URI. So it should be look like some name, any name you can give, like in this case I have given greetings, but you can give anything, then give a colon, then double slash, and then whatever parameters you are taking. So in this case, let's say we are accepting a parameter name. So you remember it. Suppose if you are doing some API call, right? So you give some slash, then v1, then slash, some argument you give, right? So that goes to the API. Same way here, while calling this resources, we can give this name, and that name will go over here, and you will get a response from the server that hello, and that name what we said. So in short, write any Python function. Either you decorate it with mcp.tool or mcp.resource. That way you can convert any Python function as a MCP tool. So this is very 4-step process, or I will say 3-step process if you just ignore resources. Import, create an object, and add any Python function you want, and just decorate it. That's how MCP server is built. So now we need to learn how we will launch it. Okay. So there are different ways of doing it. So the first one is like what we can do. In the same script only, we can say like, mcp.run. So MCP, this is the object, and just call this run function. So basically what it will do, it will launch this MCP server via stdio mode. But rarely we use this one because because it is run on standard input stream, output input stream. Again, how it is very difficult to communicate to this server when it is run in this mode. So don't run this way. Alternately, what we can do, instead of this mcp run, what we can say that, hey, run in a http mode, and run on this url, let's say localhost or 0.0.0.0. This is the any public can access it. So that means it is, and you are seeing that given a port, so that means 8082 port you are exposing. So basically this is how you can run this one. We will see in the practical, but just I'm telling the concept, like, so basically define the tool, and in this main block you just say mcp.run transport, which transport, http, and this is the host, and this is the port. So now this way your server will run on this host at this port, so any client can now connect to that server. Okay, so this is directly via mcp.run. Okay, the alternate way is like this FastMCP package itself provide a command. CLI is there. FastMCP comes with its own CLI once you install. So what we can do, there is something called FastMCP dev. Then the script, let's say for example, this is the Python script, is let's say calculator fastmcp.py, and you give a colon, and what is the object name. So let's see here, the object name can be anything, but let's say whatever object here we have given, so that you provide. So this tells that, hey, FastMCP, you run this script, and this is the MCP object to connect to. So what it will do, it will now launch an inspector. I will show you. This is a graphical user interface. It will launch. So where you can do some testing, and that's why this is the command is fastmcp dev. This is telling that I'm in currently developing phase. I'm not at deployment. So that's why it will open an inspector. That's where we can do some testing. Okay. The fourth one is, once we are satisfied with the dev, directly same command we run, and fastmcp run, then the same script, and now to expose it to a host, so you can give the which protocol is http, host is this one, and port is this one. So the very simple way we can do that. Okay, so don't worry, we will see the practical, that will give you some idea. Okay, so if you go to my GitHub repository, and if you go to this build custom MCP, you should refer to this calculator fastmcp.py. So basically here we were creating a MCP server that is the main of calculator MCP server. Okay, see the first what I'm doing is like importing the first MCP, then defining the first MCP object. So this is the object, and let's say create a add function, and create a subtract function, create a multiply function, and create a divide function. But only thing that's very important is this docstring, because this is where you are defining, agent will know what this tool is capable of. And here we are decorating it with this for mcp.tool. Okay, at the same time I'm also creating this simple Python function greeting, where I'm decorating it with mcp.resource, and here I have to give a URI string. Basically this is a name, any name you can give over here, colon slash slash, and give the argument. So that argument goes here. So this is very simply, I have now my calculator server. Now this is, I think, then let's change the name here, calculator MCP server. Okay, so this server hosts now 4 tools: add, subtract, multiply, and divide, and then one resource seater handles. Okay, so now the first very basics what we can do, as I said, you can simply say mcp.run. Okay, so this is the first I showed, right? So the first mode of launching is mcp.run, and you see this is the part of the script itself. Okay, so now you can go simply say Python and then calculator fastmcp.py. So what it will do, it will now execute one by one. So it will import the library, it will create this MCP object, associate that with the tool, and finally it will run the MCP server in stdio mode. Okay, so that means, so now that's the problem. It's actually, it has already started, the server already started, but you cannot interact with this because this is running here itself. So we cannot communicate with it. Okay, so it is now, you see, it says that it's starting the MCP server with transport stdio. I think let's see, it might open the inspector or not, I don't know. I'll have to check that. But yeah, just a second, where is it? Terminal, right? So it is just saying that starting the MCP server in stdio mode. Okay, so now we have to communicate through standard input, so which is, that's why it is not feasible to communicate to this. So that's why I don't use this one, rarely I use this one. So I cross this. Okay, so then I usually, if I want to run directly, I say mcp.run, and explicitly I say that let's go with HTTP protocol, and this is the host and this is the port. Okay, so when I do this, again use say Python calculator fastmcp.py. So now what it will happen, now it will run my MCP server in HTTP protocol. Now this will give me a host URL, so using which I can connect to any AI assistant and cloud desktop as well. So if you remember in the past videos, we have downloaded the Uniprot server and we ran it locally, and we got an URL like this, and then we configured our JSON block to use that. So that we'll see how to connect using the next video. But you see that now calculator MCP server now is running in which transport mode? HTTP mode. And where it is listening? It is listening for at the port 8081 and on this host. So now we can take this URL and we will be able to call this one. Okay, you will not be able to directly call this one here. Okay, so yeah, it will not work as is, I think, because I have not defined directly that URL endpoint. But yeah, so if you come over here, sorry for that. Okay, so if you come over here, so this is how the second mode of running. Okay, so this is what we can use. That's what I have given plus here. So this is one approach we can use. So you, in the script itself, you can say mcp.run. Okay, so let's close this one. Okay, so now the third approach is what that's important. So development mode. So basically here we are using FastMCP dev and the script. So I'll go over here. So instead of directly Python my script, I will say FastMCP. So I will ask FastMCP to run my script or run my MCP server. Okay, so let's say the development mode, let's go. So calculator.fastmcp, this is my script, and then colon, you can give MCP. So this last part is optional. If you are by default name, what you are using is MCP here. Okay, since otherwise, if let's say if you're writing here app here, hypothetical example, so you will also have to call app here, but the default is MCP. Okay, so you don't need to specify that. Okay, so now here I'm saying that FastMCP run in a developer mode, so that it will open a inspector. Okay, so now this inspector is always goes in the stdio mode. Okay, always this inspector runs in stdio mode, not on the HTTP mode. Okay, so let it run for a few seconds. You will see it will open in graphical interface that's called MCP inspector. Yeah, it's running. You see what it does. See, it opened in a nice UI interface, and here you see the protocol. You will see all the thing, but only you can play with stdio only. Okay, and the command what I was used like FastMCP run, and this is the MCP server. Okay, but since we are in the development mode, right? So we have used the dev command. So now you can simply connect to this our server. So basically this MCP inspector now act as an MCP client. Okay, so my server is running here. Okay, my server is running in this place. Okay, on this local host 62 here it is running over here, and through that I'm now connecting to my MCP server. Now it got connected, you see. So now on the top left hand side you will see resources, prompts and tools. Okay, so let's go with first the tools. Okay, you can first call list of tools, so it will say all the tools that you have even, like, so I have defined 4 tools, right? Add, subtract and this one. So that's what we'll see: add, subtract, multiply and divide. So you can do a testing over here directly here. Let's say 2 and let's say give 3. Okay, so now you just call run tool, so it will give that the result is 5. So this way you can test your tools in the developer mode. Let's say subtract let's say 10 minus 8 or not. So let's see what does it give. Okay, so now it is result is 2. That means it is working perfectly. Okay, so this way you can so list tools and test all the tools, then you are satisfied that okay, my MCP server is perfectly working fine. Okay, so now coming to resources, you can say that list resources will not work. Okay, so list templates will work. Okay, so you see now I got a greetings template. Okay, and I have to just give a name, let's say pp, and I just say read these resources. So basically what it is saying, it is saying that hello pp, because my Python function, what or my resources, what I have defined here, what it takes an argument name. That's what you saw in the UI, what the name it is expecting, and then it is returning me a some resource that says that hello the name. So here you can have a let's say FAQ as a resource. So basically if you call this FAQ, all the frequently FAQ, all this will return to the user. Okay, so that's how you connect to uh, you can use play around with this MCP server. And once you're satisfied, you can simply close this one and close this. Okay, so that means your MCP server is working perfectly fine. So then the final thing what we have to do is the run mode we have to go. Okay, that's what is very important. This is the last command you should always use. So let's that is a FastMCP. Instead of dev mode, you can say run, and the command is calculator fastmcp.py and colon MCP, the MCP object, and then you specify the protocol is HTTP. Okay, so you can see the protocol HTTP, and here I'm giving host and port is equal to this one. Okay, so same thing, I can give any other port 8083. Let's say try with that. So now what it will do, it will now FastMCP, now it will not open the developer, because it will not open that inspector because already you have done it. So it will directly launch the MCP server. Okay, and again last, similar to last, it will also give us a URL 8083. I think I did a mistake over here. Let me see what is the command here. Host HTTP unknown option, probably let's take an help here. Okay, so FastMCP run -h. I think we have to give transport probably. I'm just thinking. Okay, let's see. Yeah, it was a transport -t. Okay, so that's the wrong thing. So let's try the command again. So instead of this one, right, so I say -t is equal to HTTP. Okay, so that's what 3 possibilities there. So we will use streamable HTTP. That's much better because this will help us to okay, so let's try with this one. Let's change the port to 8083 because 8080 might be there already. Okay, so let it run. Okay, so this I'll have to change it. So it launch the server, and now you see this is the port where it is running. Okay, so if I just summarize what we learned, like very simple to build an MCP server. Okay, with just 2 lines of code, import FastMCP and create an object and define the tools, decorate it, define resources, and just don't worry about all this combination. Just if you want to try, if you are going with this approach, then you have to directly call Python and call this function. Alternately, what you do, you can do your FastMCP dev, this function name. So this will open an inspector through which you can play around, and once you're satisfied, you can run like FastMCP run calculator this one, and instead of this one -t HTTP streamable protocol and host and port you give. Now this will launch an MCP server. So we saw that how to build an MCP server. In future video, I will this is a very simple calculator MCP server, but we will next video, next video, we have a use case where NGS QC, we will do it. That's where we will see the actual use case. I'll create an QC MCP server. That will be very useful to even understand this concept. But in short, regular Python function, decorate it, your MCP service is done. Okay, so we saw like how to build an MCP server. We test how to test it using MCP inspector by FastMCP dev, and then how to launch the MCP server in HTTP mode. So now in the next video, we will launch that MCP server. Already it is running. We will connect, we'll configure our cloud desktop and open AI SDK agent. Even FastMCP provides its own other client to connect to this MCP server. So will this three approach how which we can connect to our MCP server in the next video. I hope this video was useful. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.